2, 1. What's going on, folks? Welcome to 34 Questions. I'm your host, 34, and tonight I am joined by Mr. Ray Chmielecki. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well. As you saw, I was super focused on getting your name right there. But thank you for making time for this interview and being open to share your story. Definitely appreciate it, man.
Yeah, anytime.
Cool. For the folks out there who are unfamiliar with the flow of the show, we do some intro questions, some warm-up questions just to set the tone. After that, we'll jump into the main portion where either you choose a number between 1 and 34, or we got this new thing going on where we bring out the wheel and we could spin the wheel and let it decide. We call it the Wheel of Fate. So yeah, either choose your destiny or we could go to the Wheel of Fate. And then after all that, we'll jump into the final stretch where we have some concluding questions. Sound good to you, Ray?
Sounds good.
All right, man. Well, my very first question for you is, how have you been? Just in life in general. You've been doing well. You've been doing great. How you been, man?
Doing all right. Celebrated a 33rd birthday yesterday, so I feel a little old. So I guess that's probably where I'm at right now.
That's what's up, man. Happy belated.
Thank you.
Yeah. You get to celebrate it all, or was it like, more low key?
It was pretty low key. I mean, during the week when you have a birthday drop, there's not a whole lot that you can, do. You don't want to get too crazy. You got work in the morning. So we'll go out and celebrate, eat some dinner or something this weekend,
I got
do something
you,
out, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you had it your way, how would you want to spend your birthday, or at least celebrate it? It doesn't have to necessarily be this one for any birthday.
It just put me in a tropical climate, like somewhere, kind of near the equator. You get that nice kind of humid nighttime and just the drink in the hand, and somewhere close by to a beach. Doesn't have to be on a beach, but you can kind of hear the ocean in the background. That'd be good.
I got you, man. I got you. For sure. That sounds beautiful. And I hope you get to do that soon. All right. Well, let's jump into some warm-up questions. My first warm-up question for you is, what would you like the audience to know about you?
I guess, what would I like the audience to know about me? I'm a foodie. I'm a fellow podcaster. Enjoy the medium. Hobby for me that I recently kind of discovered as part of an extension of really getting into food and wine. And yeah, that's me kind of in a nutshell. I'm also a minimalist too as well. And a little misconception about that is it's not necessarily about having nothing. It's just everything that's in your life brings you value, and usually also joy associated with that. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. Pretty simple, on the surface. Probably when you get deeper, it gets a little bit more complicated, but that's all of us.
I got you. You said you were a foodie. Any foods that you're allergic to that you unfortunately can't try?
Not that I know of allergic wise, but I have, even growing up on the East Coast, I'm just not a fan of shrimp. I've had it prepared a bunch of different ways. I've had, what's considered to be great shrimp and average and all this. It's just, it doesn't work for me. I don't enjoy it. It's like a texture thing, I think.
Nah, I feel you. I mean, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I come across a lot of people who don't like seafood, like and I'm not a big fan of oysters and stuff. Even though every time I go to a party, it seems like the oysters are, you gotta try it, but it's never really stuck with me. But
yeah, oysters I'm cool with. Oysters, mussels, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I can get totally why people, for some of that seafood stuff or not. If you don't have it and you're not exposed to it, like when you're growing up, like I think it's a lot harder to get into. But then if also you have like a bad experience, like if your first oyster that you tried was like terrible and you got like shell in there and everything, you're gonna be like, what is this and why do people enjoy it? Like, this makes no sense to me. And you're just not gonna like be interested in going back when you see it on the menu. So completely understand.
Yeah, that definitely depends on the experience. I think that goes with almost everything in life, right? If you have a bad experience, you're probably not going to do it again.
Yeah.
And then talked about podcasting being an interest. For you, what is it about podcasts that stick out from any other medium?
I think for me, at first it was just a way to, do an extension of, writing and stuff like that, put it in audio format and everything. But as I've done more and more of it and kind of gone on other people's podcasts and stuff like that here and there, it's just a cool community. Like everybody's, even on like the Reddit boards and stuff, most people are pretty open with sharing ideas and everything, and everybody's kind of super helpful. You usually don't get too criticized for anything, even if you're asking for like help or something, even if it's a question that's been put out there numerous times over. So that's always kind of been something that's definitely grown on me as I've done it more and more, is just that it's just a cool community. Everybody's just super helpful.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've been discovering. This is fairly new to me. I just done it a few months, and honestly haven't been too active in the community until recently, and that's how we met on Reddit and whatnot. But I feel like it's cool because I think for the most part the people that I've met, we're all talkers, we're all listeners. So it's nice to be able to have quality conversations with people who are looking for the same thing. I don't know if in your experience you've met a lot of conversationalists amongst people who aren't comfortable talking. But yeah, it's a different kind of connection, I think, when you have people who are just on the same vibe and have their reasons why they do their podcasts. For you, what's your podcast called? And so what's it all about? Yeah,
it's called Spoon Mob. It's pretty much all about food. I mean, mainly we're focusing right now on chef interviews and people that are in the hospitality industry, whether it's sommeliers or bartenders, general managers of restaurants, restaurant owners, stuff like that. So we've had a decent amount on. I think we're probably somewhere in the 16 to 18 range. Kind of come out every week or every other week was kind of always the goal, but we've been able to do it kind of every week recently. And then we also do one where we've started rewatching Anthony Bourdain episodes, the Parts Unknown series, just because it was kind of the couple months into COVID and we didn't have anything to really like watch, like, nobody was filming anything. So it was kind of like, well, what if we just go back and watch that? Like, that's something that we always enjoyed, and started doing that, and we've been having a lot of fun doing that. So, that's kind of where we're at with the podcast. And we do a website that's got some chef bios and course pictures and everything. And of course the Instagram, where you have all your photos too as well. So it's kind of all these things mixed into one, but it's been a lot of fun doing it. Hopefully it continues to grow and more people check it out and get involved and everything. But it's definitely, if you don't love doing it, if your whole goal like is to, monetize it and all this stuff, like some people are, and I understand that, but I think if you're not enjoying doing it, then it's probably not like almost the right space for you, just because it could take a very long time to get to that point. And you might never get to that point anyways, but if you love doing it, then, the journey's worth it.
I hear you. How long have you been doing this? Been doing it for a while, or is this fairly new for you?
Podcasting part, we've been doing a little bit over a year. Started that in like early June 2020. The interview portion really since the beginning of this year. And then kind of the writing and everything goes back to like 2019, building out a website and all that stuff. So yeah, a couple years, but keeps evolving, keep tinkering and stuff, keep changing, and it's a lot of fun.
That's what's up, man. And my last follow-up for this first question is, where do you see, what's your vision for the podcast? Where do you see yourself taking it?
I guess my vision would be to just kind of make it like almost it's probably not the right term, but like a safe space for chefs and restaurant people to kind of come on a podcast and, they have an opportunity to kind of promote, what they're doing and everything, but it really gives you a backstory as to how they got to where they are in their career. And I think that kind of helps connect people, them with the people that would go to their restaurant. And I think that would help also the restaurant get repeat business, because once you have that established connection, people kind of feel like it's this kind of family environment, that they're kind of almost a part of it in a way. And so I think that helps restaurants and chefs and continue, their businesses to keep operating with margins and profit margins being so kind of narrow and everything in that industry. Every little bit helps, and there's no kind of magic bullet for them for marketing. You could do all the social media and stuff too, but there's a whole bunch of people, even if they follow your Instagram account, have no idea like who you are, like who the chef is at the restaurant or anything like that. So that's kind of my vision, is just, having people on and they're able to kind of talk about what they're doing and everything, but also give kind of the listeners and the potential, diners, information on who they are and what makes them, so great at what they do. And then also that's kind of why you should go to the restaurant too as well.
I can dig it, man. I can dig it. I'm all about people's stories. I'm that kind of person where if you're riding the same bus with me, I'm looking around thinking about where's that person coming from, or what's their story. So similar with chefs and people who are in the food industry. If I'm in their building, I'm probably wondering like what got them, what inspired them, what they're passionate about. So yeah, definitely respect what you're doing, man.
Cool.
All right. My second question for you in the warm-up is, if someone were to pay you a tribute, how would you like to be honored? So if I was going to tell myself today I'm going to do something in honor of Ray, what sort of act could I do?
Just go eat at a restaurant, man. like go and eat at a restaurant, tell them, you heard about the restaurant, from us over at Spoon Mob, and that's it. Support your local businesses, support a local restaurant that's owned by a mom and pop, or that's owned by a chef, and it's him and his staff of 6, and they're trying to figure out how to make it work and all that stuff. Chain restaurants, they serve their own purpose, they employ a lot of people, but definitely go and support the local people, the self-proprietors and all that stuff, because they need it. They missed out on all the loans and the government-backed assistance and all that stuff, and they kind of got hung out to dry. So every little bit helps them. I mean, it's when you really get into profit margins and stuff like that, it's just insane how just narrow it is between staying open another month or closing on the spot. Like it's crazy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always heard that about the food industry, how hard it is to just sustain yourself. And I think, a lot of the folks that do it are just doing it out of the passion of either they're passionate about the food, they're passionate about their community, and just being able to serve. Because you want to, unless you're gonna start a chain, you're not in it for the money, really. I can't imagine it.
No.
But yeah, so for sure. Now we know what to do. We'll support our local businesses in your honor, man. And I'm gonna ask. I had a fleeting question. It was in there, but I was trying to reach for it. It went away. It's all good. It'll come back to me. But my last question for you in the warm-up, man, is on a scale from 1 to 10, how well do you know yourself?
I'd say 10. Pretty in tune with who I am, what I stand for, kind of where I'm at, where I want to go, where I've been, what I've screwed up, what I've done good. So yeah, I know myself really, really well at this point. 33 years, you're gonna screw up, you're gonna do some great stuff, you're gonna look back at stuff that there's you wish you did different, but yeah, I'm good where I'm at, made peace with all of it. I'm just looking forward.
I gotta ask you, man, what's the secret? how did you get to a 10?
a lot of self-analyzing. Just I have a brain that I feel like I can't turn off. So there's just the wheels always kind of spinning, and you just have to. I just have this weird way of kind of sometimes removing emotion out of the situation and just breaking it down like analytically on this needs to happen before this can happen and stuff. And once you kind of figure out how all that kind of works and how you fit in with all that, it definitely helps, and you're able to kind of focus on what you want to do, and you just kind of block everything else out in a weird way. But I mean, it's a lot of just constant analyzing, and I'm sure it sounds exhausting to people, and it was exhausting for me, but not done either. There's always stuff you can improve on as a person. So yeah, we'll get there one day.
I'm with you, man. I mean, I feel like I can be an overthinker most of the time. I'm working on trying to live in the moment a little bit more, but I tend to overanalyze things, and I mean, normally it's for improvement, right? Like we're always trying to think of how make something more efficient or more grander. For me, I try to think of how things can be more creative. But yeah, I feel you on that. And my follow-up for you is, what would you say is your favorite thing about your personality?
Favorite thing about my personality, probably I would say I have like kind of a dark sense of humor. So there's just really like, maybe it's not dark, but more so like dry. So there's just stuff that, you know, you might not laugh out loud at, but it might make you like chuckle a little bit. Like that's the stuff that like I really enjoy. And just a lot of people just kind of don't get it, or it's too in the weeds for them sometimes. So it's kind of like your own little inside joke with people once they understand like who you are, and then kind of the joke within the joke stuff. When you have people that get that kind of in your circle, it's fun. It just makes for like great times.
I gotta ask for an example. What's either show or movie that you find hilarious that might fall into that genre?
I mean, it'd be, you know, stuff like The Office. Like everybody agrees that The Office is really funny, but there's little parts in there that just make it like, it's the little like facial expressions or the little kind of things in the background that when you see it, it just kind of makes you go, huh. And that's the stuff that you can kind of always go back to, because it always seems like new to you in a way, because so many other people just kind of like don't get it or don't see it just because it doesn't fit with their sense of humor. So it's stuff like that, you know, just kind of the satire kind of, you know, Coen brother movies are really good at that too as well. They always have like these odd little things in there that just kind of make you laugh. If you ever seen like Fargo is one of their movies that they did, that's probably like the most famous one, but even like No Country for Old Men, if you've ever seen that movie.
Oh, I haven't seen either of those movies,
okay.
but thank you for the recommendation. Now I got to. I've been trying to get into like watching more. I used to think I watched a lot of movies until I realized that there's a lot of movies out there that I haven't seen. So I'm always up for recommendations. You know, I just watched, I don't know, this is just like a weird sidebar, but I just watched Planet of the Apes, like the old one. I don't know if you ever seen that one.
Which one? Because there's three. So there's the one with Charlton Heston, which was in like the 50s or 60s. Mark Wahlberg did one, and then they just did like the new ones with like James Franco, and they switched the actor like for all three of them. Woody Harrelson, I think, was in one of them.
Yeah. I'm familiar with the newer ones, the Wahlberg and the James Franco, but I just saw the Charlton Heston one.
Okay.
Which, you know, that was a trip for me, because I had an idea, but I didn't know the movie was going to be that way, where like it was a mystery about being back on Earth until the very end. For some reason, I thought that was already a known thing, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's one of those classics I hadn't seen and finally checked out. So Fargo and No Country for Old Men, those are two.
Yeah, those are two like really good Coen brother movies that I think a majority of people really like, even if, you know, you're not into that style. People definitely found something to appreciate out of those. So Fargo is kind of this weird kind of comedy, kind of robbery. There's a robbery component to it, but No Country for Old Men is kind of like kind of almost like a chase film. Like there's a bad guy chasing a good guy, but then there's like a suitcase of money involved, but it doesn't go the way you kind of think it would go. They leave parts out and stuff like it's just done really well. So I think you'll like that one.
For sure, man. I'll check it out. And is Fargo the movie related to Fargo the TV series? Because I think there's one, right? Yeah,
so the two guys who directed the movie are producers on the TV series, and they tie it in with there's actually a briefcase in that movie too as well, and that's how they kind of loop in the show. So if you watch the movie and then you watch like the first season, then you'll completely understand how they like tied it in together. But you have to kind of see both. But there's a spot where they link them.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because I did see those two things, and you know, sometimes the series isn't as good as the movie, or vice versa. So, but I'll check out both.
I think the first 2 seasons of the show are really good, and then 3 and 4 it kind of drops off a little bit, but it's still a good show. But definitely the first 2 seasons are really where it's at.
For sure. It sounds like you into entertainment, like I am. You like TV shows or movies more?
I think now movies probably, just because I feel like movies, you get a start, a middle, and like an end, even though there's like a lot of sequels and stuff. But I feel like a really well done movie is a lot more satisfying than a real well done TV show, because there's so many TV shows like now that they'll put them out as like, this is going to be a mini series, and it's to see like how many viewers they get, and if they get enough viewers to hit whatever mark that they have, then they're like, oh yeah, we'll do another season of that. But if it doesn't do well, they're like, well, it was just a mini series, so it's fine. Like they're trying to, you know, not cancel as many shows as they used to, because there used to always be just all the networks would be just axing shows that didn't do great kind of at the end of May for, you know, whatever they had to clear space for the fall premieres and stuff. So there are really good TV shows out there. You know, Succession, I think right now is probably like the best show on TV. It's kind of like that appointment viewing, it's one of the few shows that you would even like shut your computer off. Like you're not second screening it, like you're in, you know, like Sopranos or like Breaking Bad was and stuff like that. So I would say that's probably still the best show on TV, and that comes back in the fall. So there's 2 seasons out, so you can catch up on that too.
Succession.
Yeah.
That's where can I find that? Hulu, Netflix?
HBO. It's on HBO. The only person you're probably going to know is Brian Cox, who's a pretty famous actor. He plays kind of like the patriarch of the family. It's loosely based on like the Fox News family, the Murdochs, because he has 2 kids. So it's kind of like who's going to take over this business, but he's not ready to give it up yet. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff intertwined. It does take like maybe the first 3 episodes to kind of get into. So like just power through those, and then you'll be locked in.
That's usually my mark, is the 3 episodes for sure. But yeah, all right, cool. I'll check that one out. And since we're talking about shows, man, I'll tell you about the one that I recently just binge watched in the past couple of days. Was Ted Lasso. You seen that one yet?
No, a lot of people talk about it. It's on Apple, and I know they renewed it for a 2nd season. So yeah, I used to have this weird thing where I wouldn't watch anything in the first season just because so much stuff would like get canceled, and it just got left on a cliffhanger. So I was like, well, let's wait till they get like 2 or 3 seasons and you can kind of binge and catch up. So I've heard a lot of good things about it. I haven't seen it yet, but it's on the list to check out.
Yeah, you can definitely check it out when you got time. I would also put 2 thumbs up for it. If you like good vibes as far as like being a person, this character takes that to the extreme. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. But let's jump into the main portion, man. Where would you like to choose your destiny or head to the wheel of fate?
Let's go with choose your destiny. That's the old school method. So let's do that.
All right, man. Well, you probably know I do have 3 levels: in easy, medium, hard, and each one has 34 questions. So if you chose 7, you could go 7 all 3 levels, or you know, just jump around. Where would you like to start?
Let's go with number 13.
Number 13, easy?
Medium. Let's go medium.
All right. 13, medium. What was your fear when you were a kid?
So probably 2 fears. One I still have, which is heights. I don't like heights. Like roller coasters, like up to kind of a certain height, I'm okay with. Perfectly okay flying, but even when you get like on kind of tall buildings, like I like to do observation decks like when I travel, just because it gives you a different vantage point to take photos. And I'm into photography and everything. And there's even some of those where like you get like a little like, I don't know, your legs aren't shaking, but you're just a little like uneasy, you know. There's still some of those that get me every once in a while. But yeah, it was heights. And then as a kid, I remember Like most kids, I was scared of the dark. So I remember like when I was little, like I had a nightlight in my room, and that always had to like be on. But now as an adult, I don't know when it switched, but at some point I need it to be like pitch black. I can't have now like any like ambient light floating around, because it just like keeps me up. Like it's really strange. I don't know when that shifted, but at some point it did. So now I'm like the complete opposite, but still do not like heights at all, and probably never will.
That's a trip. The thing about the dark kind of trips me out, because similar, I guess, but I never grew out of it. I still need some light, and for me, the reason why I'm so afraid of the dark is I do believe that like our imagination can run away, and like when it's pitch black or you're just in dark spots, your mind might trick you to see things that aren't really there.
That happens still.
Yeah, so and one of my biggest fears now to this day is being in the dark, and being in front of a mirror in the dark is extra scary for some reason. But yeah, that's what I try to stay away from. The heights thing, yeah, I feel you on that. When I was a kid, I used to be a little bit chubbier, so I used to think going on the edge of any height, like I would, like the wind would push me and I would just lose my balance and fall. So yeah, and I think the feeling you're talking about is at least for me, like I start losing my breath, or like I start breathing different when I get to a certain height, or at least when I get to the edge of a certain height. But I will challenge myself now, and like if I'm at a canyon or whatever, I'll try to sit on the edge and just make sure I'm holding on to something. But yeah.
No, like even those you see those people, I know a lot of them are like in Russia, and they film like climbing up to these top of these skyscrapers, and like they have no safety harness and stuff, and they're like hanging off to take like a selfie with a selfie stick. Like that stuff, that gets like my hands will get sweaty like watching that stuff. I can't do it. I'm just like, these people are insane. And then like every once in a while you hear like so and so fell off one, and that was it. And you're like, it's gonna happen at some point.
I didn't hear the bad news. I only saw the highlights of everybody that got up there, and I thought the same thing, man. These kids are crazy,
All for just like a photo. It's just like, man, it's not worth it. Get a drone, fly it up there.
But what would you say is like the equivalence of getting viral when we're around the same age. So when we were growing up, what was the equivalent of being viral?
Being viral, man, that's a good question. I would almost say like it would have to be, before social media, it would have to be like getting on TV, right? Like that would have been the thing.
That's true.
Not even necessarily like reality TV, like just like even a game show. Yeah. Because then like it would have been everybody in your town or whatever was like, oh, so and so's on this show, and everybody. And then all of a sudden, I remember there was a girl that I worked with, like it was like my first job that I had, and she wound up. I forget her last name. Her first name was Tess, but she wound up doing like a Crest toothpaste commercial. And like I grew up in a small town, and like that was like people were like, whoa. And that was before, really the internet kind of caught on. That was probably like late 90s or something that she did like a Crest toothpaste commercial, but it was like a big deal.
Yeah, she became a local celebrity.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
For sure. If you don't mind me asking, you don't gotta tell me exactly where you're from, but how small of a town did you live in? Because I always lived in the city, so I'm just curious how small of a town you lived in.
So I grew up on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So that's that part that looks kind of like an arm curled up, sticking out of the state there, but all the way at the very end. So at the very end is a town called Provincetown. And then the next town over is called Truro. And that's where I grew up. That's where we lived from when I was probably 4 until like, I would have been 15, 16 when we moved to Ohio. So yeah, that's pretty much, and it was a small town, but like my high school in Provincetown, we had 2 high schools really on the lower part of the Cape, one in Provincetown, one in Orleans, which was called Nauset. Nauset was the bigger one that had, maybe like 100, 200 kids like in a class, something like that, just kind of small high school stuff, usually wherever most people are from. My high school that I went to in Provincetown, we had a big class and we had 27 kids in it.
Gotcha.
And that was like the biggest class in the school at the time. And that school has since shut down just because there's not enough families at that end of the Cape. So now everybody goes to the other one. But like even the middle school was small. So it was just like everybody kind of knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody's parents, all that stuff.
Yeah. So I assume that you now had experience living in a bigger community outside of that town. What would you say was like the difference in your experience of living in a smaller town to a bigger city?
Small town life there's a lot of people that like it, and we moved to Ohio. We moved to a smaller town, probably like 30-45 minutes west of Cleveland. It's in Lorain County. It's called Wellington. Nobody really knows where it is. Oberlin is probably the most famous kind of town nearby just because of the college that they have. They have a really big like liberal arts college, which I think is the most expensive, or was at one point the most expensive college in America for like tuition. It was like 60-some thousand. But so lived there, and it was still kind of a small town vibe. And then, eventually moved to Columbus, Ohio, where I live now. So I'm in a city, and just with the small town life, you don't get exposed to as much stuff as you do in a city. And that's everything across the board, whether it's race, gender, events, group settings, crowds, like all that stuff. When I grew up, we would go see sporting events in Boston and stuff like that. It was only like a two-hour drive away, but it wasn't like I grew up not experiencing any of that stuff. But it's just a different vibe in a city, and it's people always wonder why are cities blue and suburbs are red and stuff like that. It's like, well, you're exposed to so much more when you're in a city that everybody's kind of in the same boat. You're just a little bit more empathetic, where if you're out in the suburbs, it's like somebody coming up your driveway is like, who is this? Where like in a city, you're just like, oh yeah, it's a person, like whatever. Like it's just weird stuff like that is just the big difference. And it's just this weird mentality of just not being exposed to stuff because you're out and isolated.
I gotcha. I was asking because it's been in the back of my mind. I've never lived in a small town or anything, but I guess living in a big city my whole life, there's parts of the community that I feel like I'm a part of, but I want to feel that like, yeah, this is my town, and I go to the same grocery store, see all the same folk, and feel like there's some community in that. So I was just wondering what your experience was like, because I think it's something I would honestly dig if I got a chance to live it out.
Yeah, the best thing you can do now, I think, with everything coming out of COVID, is whatever city that you live in, just try and be a tourist in your own city. Do the stuff that you either did years ago once or had never even really thought of doing, even if it's like just grabbing tickets to like some concert or something like that, it's some venue that you never been to before. Who knows, what'll happen, different sporting events or art museums, all that stuff. Just try and be a tourist if you can, because it definitely, you get to see different parts of town that you're like, I never knew this was there at all.
Yeah, you just get to experience it. And I think I live in the Bay Area out here near San Francisco, and I definitely haven't done everything that tourists come out here to do. Something I need to step, get on. But yeah, man, let's jump into another number. Go ahead, throw one.
Let's do three. Hard.
Three hard. So 3 hard. How would you define depression?
Okay. So there's 2 ways I would define it, and the 2 best examples I've ever seen somebody describe it. One is Neil Brennan, who's a comedian. I think it's a stand-up special called 3 Mics on Netflix, and he describes it in there. And the other one was a character in this show, it's no longer on, called You're the Worst. It was on like FX for a while, and it was one of the main characters kind of described it. But like depression feels like you're wearing this weighted vest, like when you go to the dentist and they take x-rays and they put the big kind of Kevlar kind of, it feels like you have like a suit of that, just like, and you're just stuck there, and you just feel kind of weighed down. And like, for me, it's always been just kind of, you get in this weird kind of funk where you just, nothing really like matters. Like you just don't care about anything. You don't really feel anything. And I'm not talking like if you stabbed yourself with a knife, like you would feel that, but like just, you don't feel any highs or lows. Like you're just at this weird plateau, middle of the road, and nothing really like you just don't care. Like nothing really matters. And you just feel just kind of stuck and weighed down. It's a really strange, that's the best way I've kind of heard it described. Luckily for me, when I do get that way, usually I'm able to, pull myself out of it. But therapy is obviously a great way for people, to address all, those mental health issues and stuff that they have. It hasn't, I've tried it a couple times. It hasn't worked for me, but, that doesn't mean like people shouldn't try it. Like I'm probably more of a person that needs to be in person. If you're like talking to somebody, this is a great alternative too as well, but I don't think this works. Video conferencing really works for therapy, I don't think, but it's also person dependent. I think you have to find somebody that is doing a little bit more than just listening and writing down and like their notebook, like you see in all the TV shows and stuff like that. You need somebody who's a little bit more engaged than just asking open-ended questions. Like, how does that make you feel? Like I could do that at home. So I think that's probably the most accurate way that I've ever heard it described.
I got you, man. And you had mentioned therapy. I've tried it out too. I was exposed to it as a kid. Went through it until I got into college, and then for a long time never went back. As an adult, I tried again, through the apps and whatnot. I could see what you mean by not having that same connection. And also, someone told me it's kind of like, finding your your primary physician or your mechanic. You got to find somebody that you really vibe with or connect, and you can kind of feel that genuine connection. So I think that's harder too when you're trying to find somebody for your mental health, or someone you're trusting to try to understand who in every profession. We know some people who probably are comfortable where they are and don't feel like they have to try as hard, so that the connection isn't there as well. But yeah, I mean, for you, what would you say didn't work in therapy? Because I think there's a lot of proponents about it being a positive thing, but the reality is it's not for everybody. So if you don't mind sharing, what is it for you that you just didn't like or enjoy?
It just seemed, for me personally, it just didn't seem like I clicked with, the person at the other end. Was kind of the main thing. And and that becomes kind of its own process of trying to find the right person, right? Because so many people, you're probably trying to go through whatever benefits package that you have through your job, so that kind of narrows your search down, which could be a good thing, but it's also could be a bad thing, because maybe you're missing out on the person that would be really great for you because they're not in your network, and it's too expensive to go outside your network based on your financial situation or whatever. So it's good and bad with that part, but for me, it's just I didn't click with that person, and it was just kind of, I've always been able to kind of pull myself out of it with doing kind of the, like I mentioned before, like thinking and analyzing and breaking down, and I just have to keep like working at it almost in my head, and eventually I kind of pop out of it. But that's not the key. Like that's not me recommending like everybody do that. Like that's just a unique situation. Like
I got you. Yeah. Wanted to ask you about being an overanalyzer, or it's not a bad connotation for me, but I just say overthinker. But would you say overthinking is more of a positive or negative, or a gift or a curse for you?
It's probably, it's both, right? Because sometimes it takes you out of the moment that you should be enjoying, and you're looking towards either the next thing or how to improve this thing that you're already doing or whatever. But there are a lot of times where it also helps you make a really sound decision because you're able to take away emotion out of that decision. So you're able to make the best decision, whatever that is, whether it's financial or, for your own personal well-being or whatever, even if it's, like something as simple as like what bar you're going to go to next to grab a drink, right? Well, what time, things that you would analyze are like, what time is it? Where are we at? How long would it take us to get there? What day of the week is it? Is it a Friday? Is it a Saturday? Or is it a Wednesday? Is it a place that's normally crowded? Are they going to have a DJ so you can't hear anything? Out of the group that you're with, is there something that people don't like to drink? So it's like, this is a place that's only going to have beer, so not everybody's going to have fun. So you got to find a different spot. Like, and that all sounds really exhausting right now, I'm sure, to people that are listening. But that's just like the process of like my brain and how it would go. But it's way quicker than that because I'm verbalizing it. But it's just, you run through all this like checklists almost in your head, and then you kind of get this conclusion. It's like, oh yeah, we should go to this place. And everybody winds up having a great time. Now, maybe you would have found your way there anyways and still would have had a great time, or maybe you would have wound up somewhere else and had a great, so you don't really know how beneficial it is. Just sometimes it works out, and you also sometimes have to have bad experiences so you can appreciate the good ones too as well. So it's definitely a catch-22, I would say.
Yeah, man, I feel you. Same with me. I think it is equal parts a gift and a curse. I think I'm still trying to figure out if like how I could frame it. So, I think other people out there who are overthinkers can embrace it as well. But had the question
is
I
it
had,
like,
oh, go ahead.
For you, like, are you like overthinking? Like, is it more anxiety based? Like you're like worried about the different outcomes, or do you see it more as like you're breaking stuff down? Or because it can't, like, anxiety can be mixed in there too as well, where it's like, oh, if we go to this place, like I already know how that's going to go, and that's going to be this, and that's going to lead to this. Like that's another aspect of it too. Yeah.
And that is something I never thought about my overthinking to be anxiety based, but I think there is a bunch of it that plays a part into it now that you mention it. But yeah, for me, I think overthinking in the sense where, like, if I'm asked for advice, like, oh, this is a scenario, and so from that point, I'm trying to really see, like, if they're gonna tell me the other parties involved in that scenario, I'm trying to figure out, where each party's coming from, or at least being open to it, and trying to figure out, like, even because I don't know, I'm trying to make sense of it. I'm trying to think, okay, possibly this happened to them to make them feel this way, and this is why it happened. But the more I like it when there's more people involved, because then I could think about it more. But in that sense, if I'm looking at, I don't know, a circle, right? I don't know, most people they'll find that boring, but for me, I'm thinking about all these things, like what I could put in the circle, or how the circle can be designed, or all these things. And then sometimes when it comes to with words, like, even sometimes it'll be like a simple text, or I don't text where it's like one line text. I'm the kind of person who texts my whole message in a paragraph,
I do that too.
Yeah.
I can't stand one line texters. Like, you just sent me 7 messages. Like, can we just put this all in one? What are we doing?
Yeah. So that too. I don't know how I started getting into this habit of trying to be as concise as I possibly can, which for most people, they'll be like, oh, this guy is being off-putting or doesn't want to socialize. But in my mind, I'm just telling myself, like, well, I'm just trying to make my message as direct as possible. So, there's no fluff. Efficient. Yeah. I would try to be efficient. But I know that there's like an art to creating the line or the story, or there's the art of language. And for me, for some reason, at some point, it was like, well, let me just cut through like the extra stuff and let me just say what I need to say. But yeah, so those are some of the things that I feel like I think about that not everyone does. but then again, you know, we all kind of think we're different, but we're not really, right? So yeah, that for me, that's how overthinking like manifests itself. But yeah, something I'm working on, something that, you know, living in the moment. Like, you know, I think we all have those moments where we just say fuck it, you know, let's just do it, which I can. Damn, you're making me realize these things. But you know, when I'm working on something, or if I'm doing a task that I don't want to do, I usually am less thinking about it and just be like, let me just do it, let me get through it. But if I have the time to think, then I think I'll take all the time I need just to make myself feel better. But anxiety wise, I'm gonna have to like put that in my thoughts the next time I overthink, just to see if I can see if it's a negative or positive thing in that time. But yeah.
Like half the battle too is like just being aware of that stuff. Like now, like being aware of it alone just makes everything so much easier, because now you're like, okay, I know I'm doing this, and then you can start to work on like, why am I doing this? And if you can figure that out, then like what needs to change so you don't do that, or do you embrace it or whatever. But being aware of like just kind of, you know, for every person, like whatever their flaws or mental health issue, like that's such a drastic step. Like you know, people would probably say, oh, well, that's, you know, 50%, but like it's so much more than that. Like that's most of the work is just accepting and figuring out like, oh, I do this or I do that, or, you know, stuff like that.
I feel you, man. And I think in life, everything is balanced. Like, you know, that's what it is. And being aware of it, I can see the positive, but I also envy the folks that are unaware of it. You know, they don't have to think about it. They just go about their lives doing what they do. But yeah, so for me, there's that balance of like, I am happy I'm aware, because I feel like that I want to change and I can change. But then, you know, with that is also the pressure of change, which, you know, that's something I feel like is probably my biggest issue is, you know, always feeling like I'm running away from the pressure, you know, of anything. That's something I've realized after all these years, man. I don't know if you know or you've heard, you know, previous podcasts, but, you know, I've had 15 jobs in 10 years. And I think it's because of the pressure that made me want to leave. Like every single time, it's like I was getting too close or getting more responsibility, and I was just telling myself, well, like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. This isn't what I'm passionate about. Making me feel like I was like, or now I'm realizing that maybe I was just making excuses for myself to, you know, make a change. But yeah, so that's where I'm at, and I'm trying to work on that.
I mean, maybe, but you know, 15 jobs in 10 years is pretty much a normal resume these days. So like, it's not, you know, that's not ridiculous. Like, it's rarer to find somebody who's been in the 1 or 2 jobs over the course of 15 years than it is somebody, you know, who's done, you know, 15 and 10 or something like that. So yeah, I mean, who knows, you know, it could be any of those things. It could just be, you know, tendency to get bored because you're like, this isn't challenging, or you don't, you know, I don't care about this. Like, this isn't, and that's, you know, a big thing is like figuring out what you actually enjoy, like what you're passionate about, like you said, is a big step too, because there's so many people that just, you know, they go to the job that they're working and it's just an industry that they got a college degree in, and I did this too, and it's just, you know, you're working in that job and you're like, why, like, how the hell did I wind up here? And like, why am I here? And why am I still here? Like, I don't, you know, what am I going to be remembered as, like, you know, the best salesman at this, you know, manufacturing company? Like, nobody cares about that. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, but what I enjoy doing is, you know, for me, I enjoy traveling. I enjoy, you know, eating at restaurants and having conversations with people at, you know, restaurants and stuff like that. That's what I enjoy. So, you know, goes back to what I said in the beginning, like, yeah, it'd be great if all of us who are, you know, podcast hobbyists, you know, could eventually make a career out of this, because, you know, most of us love the medium for what it is. But if you don't, it's okay too, just because, you know, you had this great journey that is also going to be, it's going to live on the internet forever too, as well. Like, so you don't, you know, before it was like, if you didn't make your mark on the world, like eventually you just kind of fade away. back in, the 1900s or whatever, if you didn't write a book or you weren't a famous actor or president or anything like that, like the only people that remember you are your family. And after you get so many generations, it's just diluted, and it's just, you become like, this person in kind of the family tree. But now it's different. Like now you can, with a podcast, like this will live on, until the world explodes, essentially. Whenever that is.
Yeah. That's definitely, my hope is that this video and all my other videos will live a lot longer than than us and our generation. I like to think of it as like our hieroglyphics. We have these messages that we're trying to leave behind, and that's the biggest thing with me, man. Something I think about all the time is how much of the past don't we really know? We can only know what we've been left behind, or what's been made available. I think there's like so much mystery to that. That for me, I guess my reaction to it is, well, let me interview everybody in the world so we have no doubt of what's going to be missing around this time. So yeah, that's definitely where my head's at. Just a heads up, man, we have about 10 minutes left in the podcast. Wanted to thank you again for stopping by. You've asked me some good questions that made me reflect on my life, man. So I can see why you're a podcaster as well. But yeah, let's head over to the final stretch of the podcast, man. Before we get into the concluding questions, my thing that I've been doing with guests is called the 34th mantra. I have some phrases for you to fill in. The first one is, I am blank. How would you fill that one up?
I am human.
I am human. Second one is, I can blank.
Do anything I want to do.
I can do anything I want to do. And the last one is, I will blank.
Be successful.
I will be successful. All right, man. If you ever need a reminder, now you have these sound bites of yourself as a reminder in the future. Let's jump into these concluding questions. And this next one is from my previous guest. Shout out to Parker from the UK. His question for you is, what makes you proud about the country you live in?
Man. I think a lot of people would argue there's not a whole lot to be proud of with the US these days, but it's still, despite all the flaws, and there's a lot of them, it's still the place where people do want to come because it gives them a better chance than where they are. A lot of countries, even though our immigration is at net zero, there's still a lot of people that want to come, and because they just know that even if I'm in the bottom, third of American citizens in terms of, income or, wealth or whatever, that's still better than what I had in the country that I was at. And I think we lose sight of that. I think we lose sight of, because you're in it, if you're born in it, born in America or always, lived here, you definitely lose sight of all the other basic challenges that we don't like. Running water is not an issue for most Americans, a majority of Americans, but you go to a country like Somalia, running water is a really big deal, like, because they have severe droughts that leave them without water. Like, they have to get water from like the UN. They have to get somebody to bring it in. So there's like just basic stuff like that. I think we all forget about it. And it's, you get lost in all the TV shows and the advertisements, and marketing, social media and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why so many people want to be here. And there's a reason why so many of us are here, remain to be here. And that, I think that's something to like about America.
I feel you, man. I think in the beginning of quarantine, for some reason, I was just curious if I could make my money stretch in other places in the world. But every time I, try to do some research or ask some folks, it's always like, why do you want to leave? Like everybody's trying to get there. Like the rest of the world is trying to get in and you want to go. That's a lot of my privilege, I guess. And, just made me realize how much more appreciative I need to be where I'm at. But yeah, for sure. And, I think, you mentioned America's not doing so great, or it would be hard to be proud. But I think it's just the whole world right now, to be honest. Like, I think the priorities of our social climate and culture and stuff is not out of whack, but I think the people in power aren't the best people to be there. And yeah, I'm not political at all. I don't know what I'm talking about when I say these things, but I just feel like there's a better way. And that's all I can really say about it.
I think most everybody from both sides would probably agree that, yeah, there's definitely a better way, and the people that are running things are not doing the best job.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because, like I said, my experience in different jobs, I think there's always that consensus sometimes between the workers and the management, where the workers are like, management doesn't understand this, and management is like, well, our workers don't understand this, and so it's like both sides are kind of stressed out for no reason because there's no communication. But yeah, I don't know what the answers are, but hopefully this next generation figures it out. Yeah, like just another question. How do you feel about this upcoming generation? Because I believe we're both millennials, and yeah. What do you see that's different with this upcoming generation?
Yeah, I'm a millennial. I don't feel like, even my sister's technically a millennial. She's like right at the top end of the cutoff, but I think that the term at least got used incorrectly by a lot of the media, where they really wanted the next generation down, instead, we're the last generation that, like, we grew up, I grew up with the wall phone. Like, cell phones weren't just a thing. Like, cell phones didn't even happen until like end of middle school, like 7th, 8th grade was kind of when personal cell phones kind of really started to come out. So with the next generation, they are very focused about equality, which is great, the income gap, all that stuff, but they also need to toughen up a little bit. They're kind of soft on some aspects too, where, yes, we want life to be fair as possible, but sometimes just it's not fair, and there's like cruel twists of fate, and you just kind of have to roll with it and suck it up. And hopefully those are just the minor things that you have to do that to, not big things like like I said, income inequality or racism or anything like that, but there are times in life where it's like you just got to eat this one and it sucks, and that's just kind of like, you're not going to have this cupcake ride of a life. Like, there's going to be some bumps in the road, so strap in, because nobody's had a perfect life yet.
Yeah, man, I hear you. And I live in California, where we're pretty liberal and pretty blue out here. And seeing the kids kind of, I grew up with the messaging that that I'm special and I'm meant for great things, and that I got the participation trophies growing up too. And yeah, I feel like these kids now, I can see their energy being there, being cultivated, but if you're told you're always right, you're never gonna know when you're wrong. So I think that's kind of the dilemma that we're having out here in California, at least. But hopefully they'll be more open to talking it out than just using emotions and aggression to get it out there. But anything to add?
I would say, if you're looking at God, this is gonna be a weird comparison, but if you're looking at people to role model yourself after, you know, if you look at somebody like Michael Jordan, right? We'll use him for example, or even Kobe Bryant. It's kind of the same thing. To get where they were at the height of their fame, at the height of their athletic abilities, all that stuff, that was all they did. That was their singular focus, was just, I'm going to focus on basketball. Nothing else matters. So I think everybody has to kind of remember, like, we all want to be great at what we do or what we're passionate about, but to get there, to get to the very top of the pyramid, you kind of have to be almost like a obsessive kind of crazy person to get there. So you have to weigh the pros and cons of, is it worth it? Is it not? But also, how does that affect other people that you encounter too as well? Like, are you okay with not having, you know, relationships or a close circle of friends because you want to be the greatest at whatever it is that you do? And I don't think like the younger generation understands that. I don't think they kind of, and maybe they will realize that with time, but I think right now they don't get it. I think they're like, oh, this didn't come easy to me, so whatever, I'm gonna go do something else. Whereas if this is the thing that you actually like really care about, like, you have to put in so much time and so much energy, way more than you ever think you're going, even with, you know, this podcast. And it's something that I love to do, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. And you know, there's no, the only payoff is like, you know, my happiness and helping other people and giving other people a platform. And hopefully whoever listens to it, they learn one thing or get value in some way, of whether it's, you know, entertainment or knowledge, or, you know, helps get them through the day, or makes them explore something, you know, that they didn't know about or in themselves or outside of themselves or whatever. But, you know, it's stuff like that. Like, things are a lot of work, and you're going to put in a lot of work at a lot of stuff that you don't want to do. So hopefully you figure out what you do want to do and put a lot of work in there. But it's not as, you know, it's not going to be this easy thing that just going to, oh yeah, today I did this and now I'm a million. Like, that's not how it works.
Oh yeah, not for the majority of people out there. That's not how it works. And
no.
Yeah, and what you just described is exactly what I kind of went through. And you know, I had to really realize what I cared about. Which, you know, when I turned 30, that's when it kind of that flipped the switch for me, I guess, so to speak. But yeah, now I kind of know what I care about and what I want to focus my life on. Finding that focus was huge. But yeah, because you talked about Kobe and Michael. Yeah, those are a couple guys who gave up their childhoods, you know, gave up so many experiences, made so many sacrifices, where I lived a pretty average, normal high school experience where I had friends, I went to the parties and all that. So it makes sense why I'm not the greatest basketball player in the world. But yeah, I hear you, man. My second to last question for you is, what would you like to ask the next guest that comes on to 34 questions?
What are you passionate about? Not what you do, not what your job is. What are you passionate about?
What are you passionate about? How would you answer that question for yourself?
I would say travel, food, podcasting, and experiences. Like, just living life, exploring, seeing different things. You know, I think probably kind of the dream of mine is always to one day be able to get like, not even necessarily, you know, like a small RV or something, and just, you know, I can still have a day job or whatever, work remote, but just go see stuff. You know, even being in a city, traveling to another city by an airplane, you only have so much time in that city, but like, just really like moving around and being in, you know, a city or a location for a couple of weeks and getting kind of the full experience of it, and seeing all the different, there's so much stuff to see, like even across the world, like other halfway around the world, like in Asia, it's just completely different. You know, if you've never been, get on a plane, go, it'll be a transcendent experience for you. So, you know, figure out stuff like that. Like that's what I'm passionate about.
For sure, man. Thank you for sharing. And my last question for you, the question that ties every podcast together, 500 years from now, our descendants are watching this video. What would you like to tell them?
That we weren't all giant fuck ups.
I hear you, man. I'm curious to see how this time in history is going to be written, and when it's all said and done. What age are we in? What period are we in? That reflecting back, so
spun out of control and lost its mind for a few years. Period. Apparently.
I mean, just thinking of American history, right? It's we're still relatively new compared to the rest of the world, at least. Mm-hmm. What they have written down, or the different evidence that we have of our age of our civilization. I guess we're still figuring it out as a young country, as a young civilization. We'll see where we go. I think, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like we're in the beginning of some kind of renaissance or reawakening of something. How do you feel about it? Would you agree, or am I being crazy?
No, I mean, it definitely has, I think, the markings for that. It's just, it's different because now there's so many other distractions that it kind of makes me wonder, like, do we have what it takes to actually execute it? Back in the old, I can't imagine them, winning the Revolutionary War if they were, on Twitter for half the day. You know what I mean? Like, there was no distractions back then. Back then it was, farming in the fields, and then it was like, oh wait, they want to take 17% of my profits because it's a tax. Like, that's not cool. And that was it. Like, it was singular focus, and that's why we're able to do so many great things and build so many, big structures and all these massive businesses. And, World War II, like, could we even do World War II now? Like, the amount of manpower that went into, building all the tanks and the airplanes and moving people around. Like, I mean, technologically, we're way more advanced, but it's tough to tell if we still have, like, the drive necessary to kind of complete some of these big things that will, turn the world over on its head.
Yeah, you make a good point. I was so optimistic until you reminded me.
Sorry.
It's all good, man. It's all good. Any last things you want to add before we head out of here?
No, I mean, appreciate you having me on. It's a lot of fun. I always enjoy, going on other people's podcasts and connecting with them and supporting them any way that I can, just because I know how difficult it can be to get people on your podcast when, especially if, depending on how narrow your focus is, it can make it even more difficult. So just been real thankful to connect with everybody they have in the community, and it's cool to, discover new podcasts and new shows and support new people, and love the show. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. Thank you. Thank you for coming on, sharing your story. I want to apologize. I don't think you got my A game for some reason. The words were they were hard to come out of my mouth today. But thank you for sticking with me, being patient and just rolling with it.
That's what we do.
Appreciate it. Want to thank all the folks out there. If you're tuning in on Spotify or Apple Music, or even on YouTube, if you liked it, please like it. If you loved it, subscribe and share. Remember to reach out, reach forward. As always, much love, and we'll catch you guys next time on 34 Questions. Peace. Let's roll credits. But yeah, man, just wanted to thank you again for stopping by. Like I said, I feel bad you didn't get my A game, but any feedback you had for me, through the whole process, your experience as a guest.
No, I mean, it's cool. I mean, you have it all well together. I know you can look up the questions beforehand if you want. I didn't, but yeah, that's it's all spelled out. I mean, it's all well done, man. I'm just figuring it out as I go, man. Like, I've learned so much with just like from starting, just how to even record audio. Like, I mean, I didn't really know how to do that. Like, how to, set up a microphone in your computer and record, and how to edit audio. Like, I learned so much from YouTube, just figuring it out as I go. And And it gets, you learn more and you get better and better at it. And it's just, but it can be overwhelming at first, with all the different technology and stuff like that. But once you kind of get into it, then you're like, oh yeah, wasn't as challenging as I thought. It was just because it was new. And you kind of forget that feeling because you wind up just doing the same thing every day. So it kind of feels like that. So when you start doing something new, it's just like, whoa, what is it? Like, can I even learn this? And then you figure it out and you're like, oh yeah, it wasn't so bad. But it's just a weird feeling that you don't have anymore because you're not like in school and stuff.
Yeah, it's just real life learning. I think that